everyone. Welcome to the Orgvue booth at HR Tech, where today we have a really important and exciting conversation planned with our strategic alliance partners, Deloitte, where we're going to be having a conversation around tech talent, and more specifically, what are some of the considerations that companies are going through when they're thinking about the transition to the cloud and other digital transformation exercises they're going through. I'm joined here today by Nate Painter and Araceli Velez. Nate, Araceli, do you want to take a moment just to introduce yourselves? Yeah,
absolutely, Mike. And I mean, first of all, thank you. Thanks for hosting us and having us here and being a great partner on this journey, a great alliance partner of Deloitte. It's really fun to kind of think about what we're doing within tech, and Deloitte's really kind of driving some exponential focus in how we think about the tech workforce. I'm leading a lot of our tech talent transformation efforts for Deloitte. So how are we going to get the ROI when tech is a major kind of challenge? Delivering the right resources and the right structures and getting people really operational is really a big challenge that companies are facing today. So thrilled to be here with you. Araceli?
Great. And yeah, echo everything Nate said. Mike, I think this has been one of the greatest partnerships I have the pleasure of working with over the last decade. I've been working with with multiple clients across multiple industries, trying to solve a bunch of tech talent workforce issues, and very excited to be here. Thank you everybody for joining us.
Amazing. As we kick the conversation off, I think we're going to spend a little bit of time talking through some of the solutions that we've been bringing to the market, and let's see if that clicker will work. I was hoping, Nate, maybe you could help us sort of ground ourselves in this conversation. I think at HR Tech, there's a lot of people talking about skills and the future of work and the future of talent. And today we're talking about a topic that's relevant just about for every company that is going through a transition where they might have their applications on-prem, they got to move them to the cloud. And there's actually some really significant workforce implications to that. So do you want to just kind of frame up the conversation for us today?
Yeah, absolutely, Mike. And one of the things we see cloud-ready workforce up on the slide, but I mean, the real focus here is companies are trying to figure out how do I get the ROI out of this cloud investment that I'm making. And for a long time, I think we've been talking about cloud. We've been discussing it now for at least the last 20 years, right? Whether that was kind of really early emerging companies or now companies that are really kind of more reliant on cloud. But the journey is certainly not over. And I think that's kind of a little bit of a myth. Sometimes people feel like we're done with cloud. And two things are really happening. Either one, we got companies that haven't really made that journey as much as you might think outside looking in. And then the second one is companies that have made the journey but really haven't gotten the full ROI out of it. And AI is really accelerating that desire to wait. Now we have to figure out how am I going to kind of unlock this value of the data that now is connected in the cloud. So there's a lot ahead. And what we're finding is, and I'll talk about it in a minute, is that the workforce becomes a big unlock to actually being able to bring that ROI to bear. It's not necessarily the cloud capability. So I think, being able to leverage a solution like Orgvue and partner between Deloitte and Orgvue, we can bring some really powerful insights on what do we need to really unlock that value. So, yeah, and if I just flip ahead, I've got a couple things I just wanted to focus on. So I talked about how this journey certainly isn't over. I mean, I love this stat, and by 2025, right, companies are going to spend 50% of their overall IT spend in public cloud. I mean, that's a massive, massive number. And I think we're actually going to see it continuing to increase. And one of the big things, as I mentioned, is AI. So in order to really get the value, we've been talking with a couple of some of the big public cloud companies. And, they're investing pretty heavily in trying to make sure that they're unlocking who's going to be using that data, how to drive better usage out of that data, even how to better manage that data, because their overall value is actually hindered by users not being able to get the value out of it and companies not seeing the ROI. And there are, similar to our conversations, they're relating it back to, do I have the right workforce? Do I have the right skills in the right places in order to really achieve that? So we're going to see roles all over the place, and we're going to see shifts that are pretty dynamic. And one of those shifts I just want to highlight is we're seeing a lot of market volatility, right? If you read the papers, if you see what's happening in the media, we constantly see there are layoffs of tech positions, then we see hiring of tech positions. And our prediction at Deloitte is we're going to see that volatility continuing to fluctuate. There's going to be more volatility than less. And guess what that means? It means we have to organize and reorganize and restructure and redeploy these workforces and really kind of harness the skills in the right way to optimize them. And that's something that Deloitte can do, and it's something that Orgvue can do. So really excited about it.
Yeah, just a point on that. I think the interesting thing is you've got some of these companies that you guys work with that have built up their entire infrastructure and their entire teams built on a bit of an archaic way to manage some of their applications, their IT infrastructure. And so these are people that only know one way, right? And they've built and they've cultivated talent and they've recruited talent one way. So this is actually a really significant change in how they just think about sourcing talent. You mentioned the dynamic job market. So that sort of reinforces the need for what we're talking about today.
That's right, Mike. I think moving to the cloud is changing everything in your IT organization, from the way you operate to the way you do security, to the way you maintain, to the way you provide support to your customers. So it really is a big, big change that the workforce needs to get in line with. Otherwise, we're not going to see the benefits. We're not going to reach the ROI. And most importantly, you don't really get any business value out of the huge investment that you're doing for your tech work, for your cloud spend, right? So they definitely go hand in hand. I think most organizations are optimized to work with what they know, as you're mentioning. But it's now, how do we get into the new, and how can we get the benefits of the new? That's why this partnership is so exciting. We're starting this, and we're giving people tools to continue to monitor, not just do it once, but continue to do it, because it's gonna be an evolving landscape that it's not gonna stop, right? So excited to jump right into it.
Love that.
Mike, I just want to hit on a couple things real quick. So I mentioned the ROI piece. I mean, what we really see is I think reflected pretty well here, right? A lot of companies have made this investment, and what we really have hit is what we call this ROI, adoption plateau. And adoption, we often think of like, okay, so the change management side, are people really using it? But there's a big component of, are we engineering it for use? And so today, what I'd love Araceli to kind of walk us through is kind of how we're thinking about that in partnership with Orgvue, of how we can help accelerate how companies think about that and how they can actually drive the adoption at scale that they're really targeting. Because it really is much more than, am I changing and am I getting more business users to use the technology? It's, am I engineering the data in a way that's user-friendly? Am I using it in a way that's actually aligned with the way that cloud platform was designed? Am I securing it in a way that people trust it? And then am I even managing the data so that it's actually spend worthy, right? That I'm really doing something in an efficient way that's driving effective spend. So we do see that if we can really unlock the workforce component of this, that it does drive a massive increase in the ROI for companies, but also ultimately, I think your cloud companies would really appreciate it too, because they're going to get better use out of it too.
Yeah, and a question for you on that. I mean, how many of your clients do you see have this type of capability in-house to think about a future state when they're going through a transition like this? I mean, obviously that's where your expertise comes in, but like, what do you see around that in the market? Is this something that's a brand new, thing for them, or just maybe spend a minute on that?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's brand new, but it's the intentionality is picking up. It's picking up steam. And I think what we've really seen is there are so many market cases now of companies that kind of muddled through this, that have tried to figure it out as they go, right? And all of a sudden you go, okay, I need GCP engineers, I need AWS engineers, I need people who are native engineers, was kind of the starting point behind it. But then am I really factoring in the fact that, bringing a bunch of data into the cloud that I don't need costs a lot of money. And that's not a good use case. Now I need people to manage what that looks like, right? I need people to kind of then be out driving the adoption for the business users, collecting feedback and bringing that product back in. So I think it's been an evolution. I think it's picking up a lot of steam right now because we've got a lot of data. There's a ton of data that's sitting in the cloud right now. And are we really harnessing that data? So now we're spending money on the data. We've got to figure out how we're going to unlock what we're spending a lot of money on. And now we're seeing companies even trying to turn it off, right? How do I turn off the amount of data that I've now put out there? Because either my solution wasn't engineered in an efficient way, or I've got data that I didn't really need to send in. I'm not getting value now, or it's dated, and I now want to make sure that I'm not actually spending on kind of being able to manage that data. So that's the biggest unlock, is people are starting to figure out we really have to do something about this, because it's not small dollars.
It's really, really interesting. And I'd love to maybe turn it to you, Araceli, to kind of step us through. We've done a lot of work as part of the Alliance to think through what a market-ready solution is to help our customers in this journey. Why don't you kind of frame up for us, where some of the focus is as you're walking your clients through a transformation of this nature and the workforce components, and step us through it.
Thank you, Mike, and thanks, Nate. That was a great introduction to this topic. So, as you mentioned, it's been an evolution, right? Over the last 10 years, we've seen people put focus from we need to move to the cloud to now we need to get our ROI from the cloud, right? And again, we have found time and time again that workforce is a huge component in order to be able to do that. So when we decided to partner together, we were like we decided to frame the set of tools and solutions that you're about to see into two objectives. The first one is, how can I create my future ready? How can I design my future ready workforce that is going to enable me to get that ROI? And that's going to be a combination of new capabilities, new roles, new skill sets, gained efficiencies, and new ways of operating and working in the cloud. Additionally, we need to make sure that we are providing the business value to our organization. So how do we ensure that we're maximizing that ROI? How do we ensure we're tracking it? How do we ensure we have the right operating model behind it in order to be able to achieve that ROI? And how can we continue to monitor it over time so that we follow a proactive approach? And if we need to stop spend or reinvest in certain capabilities, we have the tool set in place to be able to do that and recognize that ahead of time rather than let that cost us in the long run. So I think with that, we can jump into what everybody's here to see. And again, this is just to level set. This is a traditional IT organization that we typically see, again, optimized to work on-prem, to work in ways that we know today that we're comfortable with. And we want to take you from that into activating your future-ready workforce that is going to be able to operate and get the benefits of the cloud. So, thank you. So you can see here, again, traditional IT, fragmented capabilities, very much so focused on application development, infrastructure, siloed operations, and it serves a purpose, right? It manages on-prem assets and it does it very well. It provides typical IT support, and maintains those assets, and really it does what it needs to do. Now enter cloud. And that's obviously not going to continue to be efficient. So what we started to do is first we need to know where we're standing against what we need in the future. So these are the new capabilities that we typically see an IT organization needs to stand up, and the different composition of the workforce and how it will likely shift over time. So I do want to call a couple of them out. I won't go into too many detail because we could spend all of HR Tech talking about this. But for instance, you can see how app development support becomes a little bit of a smaller proportion of your organization. And the reason being is, again, the cloud changes completely how you develop. You go from customized, very heavy mainframe development into microservices. You're leveraging preset templates, blueprints that have already been created from one of the hyperscalers. You start using tools like Jenkins, Ansible, Kubernetes, right? That provide you a lot of different tools and templates, again, to be able to do that. Another big one is infrastructure. You're going to now go from managing physical assets, and typically we see a very large volume of those physical assets, into now you're managing services, and somebody else is taking care of that maintenance of those assets. So you will definitely see some efficiencies typically in those areas. But you also have to stand up some capabilities in order to be able to operate in this new way of working. So we do have, for instance, a cloud COE. How are you going to scale? The cloud is not going to necessarily give you the benefits unless you're able to reach scale. And a cloud COE is typically how we see do it. Let's set up standards for the organization. Let's create scalable processes. Let's create repeatable processes, repeatable controls, repeatable ways of working that can then be transitioned to all of the other capabilities. So really, this is where we start out with, and the rest of the tool sets just give you an opportunity to deeper into each one of these functions to make sure that you're optimizing each one of them in the best way possible.
I would just add, you start to see things like FinOps coming in here, right? How do we manage the data in the cloud? And it's honestly, that's one of the capabilities I think we're seeing some pretty massive investment in right now. So we'll see more and more of that. But what I love here is an accelerator for companies to look at this and say, this is where I need to go without having to overthink it or not having a starting point, trying to do their own research. It's already pre-configured in a tool.
Yeah, no, I love it what you guys have done here. And as you say, Nate, this is a tool where effectively on day one, you can have a conversation around what is the change going to be like? What is the magnitude of the change going to be like? This is one dimension to look at the types of capabilities you have. Probably a good segue into another dimension, which is more around organizational health and how you guys are thinking about the efficiency of the organization and the types of roles that exist in the organization.
Exactly. No, thank you for the wonderful transition. Again, every time there's a transformation of this scale, we think it's a great opportunity to look at your organization as a whole. And let's look at, am I optimized in general, right? Before you introduce cloud as a concept, before you introduce cloud in the mix, what are the areas that my organization is potentially struggling with today? Because I'm about to introduce another layer of complexity that now I have to deal with. So you can see here that we created a visual to just get an overview of that overall health. And what you're about to see in the next couple of slides is we then deep dive into each of these organizational components where we have benchmarks that, again, start the conversation. Every organization is different. Every organization is going to have different priorities, a different cloud strategy that you will have to adapt to. But this is a great conversation starter to see, am I in a good, healthy place to achieve my business goals? Because really, we're talking a lot about ROI, but it really is getting the benefits of the cloud, getting that business value realized, and again, understanding where you are so that you can close the gap and really realize where I need to go in the future. And again, our vision for this is you run this over time. It's not it's not a one-time only thing. It doesn't stay here. It's something that you can continue to run time and time again because it's already there. All we have to do is just benchmark you against what the point of view that we have here. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and show you one of those double clicks into the organizational health that you can see. So here you see the new cloud functions that we were just discussing and a functional benchmark that we recommend we compare you against. So quick visualization, you're able to very quickly pinpoint out, oh, okay, maybe I need to look at my cloud COE. Maybe I need to look at my executive leadership, right? This is not where I want to be, or adjust where you want to be based on this data. So it's been, again, it's a great overview of the health and how to use this data in order to get to a better place organizationally. And I'm going to keep going here. Now that you know your organization's health, again, we need to double click into what does this actually mean in terms of my investment? Where can I expect to get some efficiencies? Where am I going to need net new capabilities? And this is a visualization that goes hand in hand with the capability one that we showed you earlier. And it's about, how does my organization need to change? Where do I need to identify those pockets of investment that are needed in order to make my cloud journey successful? And where am I going to potentially get some of those efficiencies so they can even, fund my other pockets? This too, as we were mentioning earlier, are net new capabilities. Migration Factory and FinOps is something that very rarely an organization is going to have unless they're on the cloud journey already. And again, FinOps, there's a lot of things that change with the cloud. Financial management is a big one. And it's a trend that we've seen definitely increase over the years, because now that the engineering pieces are a little bit more solidified, now we need to actually manage our spend and make sure we're not going over. How are my services actually getting charged? Again, this is new for everyone. So it's a hot new capability that we've seen lately. And a migration factor is just a way to accelerate your journey. Again, let's keep the objective in mind. How long do you want my journey to take? 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5? Let's set up a body that actually focuses on that and just that so that we can get the benefits quickly.
Yeah, and I was just going to add in there, Araceli, just listening to the presentation so far, you're talking about when you're going and talking to your clients, there's not just one dimension that you're evaluating. You're looking at this from the types of capabilities that may or may not exist. You're looking at it from a workforce sizing perspective of how many should you expect for an organization your size. You're looking at it from an org health perspective around things like spans and layers. You're looking at roles that you would normally expect to exist, contract labor, perhaps in your migration factory that doesn't exist yet. So I just think it's a really important part because what you guys have outlined here is really a comprehensive way to think about the workforce and needing something that's flexible enough that can support all those different dimensions as you're thinking about constructing a future workforce.
Agreed. And I think, again, Orgvue is such a great tool to see it all in one place. Typically, that's not something that you would be able to kind of get at a glance, right? But this makes it very easy to understand where you're healthy, where you're not healthy, where you're going to need investment, where there's potential efficiencies to be gained, and how is my organization going to have to change over time. Perfect. And so with that, I think it's a great double click into, we picked the cloud COE to show you, because again, we are creating accelerators in order for you to benchmark yourself against and see where do I have these roles in my organization? Many times, depending on the cloud maturity of the organization, the answer is no, right? And what roles do I actually need to achieve my business objectives? Again, it might not be all of them for certain organizations, but definitely if you're very focused on data analytics or if it's a rapid development organization, you definitely want to put emphasis on DevOps or data or cybersecurity is a big trend that we're seeing lately. So this is just an example of how you can begin designing those new capabilities and attaching roles to those capabilities so that you see where each of those skill sets are going to sit within your organization and make sure that you don't have any gaps in there. And just another quick overview here. You can do the detailed view around cost as well. This is the goal, right? We need to get you to centralized capabilities. We need to understand what are those new roles created within each of the capabilities. How much am I spending on this? How much will I spend on this in the future? This really is a helpful tool to help you plan and visualize for the future. And I think it's really great that you can do it at the capability level. And again, this is just a view of one of them. You can also see the different layers that you have within the actual capability. So this is just one of them, but you're able to do it for every single one of them, really. Here.
So I just add to what you're talking about. I think the ability for someone who's actually doing org design, right? And a lot of times this will be a tool used by the Deloitte, used by org design professionals, someone in HR. It obviously can expand because I think you've got so much functionality in what you can do with Orgvue. But to be able to have all of this integrated where all of a sudden you can just say, okay, what's the design parameter that I need to build in here? And then know, what do I have to budget for in the next year? What are the shifts that I need to really plan for? Who is going to take over these roles and how is this all going to kind of factor in? You can make those decisions in one place and it flows through. I think it's just it's a remarkable time saver, and it takes a lot of the guesswork out of what to do and how to structure and how to plan it. And it starts to create a little bit more consistency that, again, as you see that volatility, you can start to actually shift this and pivot it from a core as opposed to always recreating. So there's a lot to go from.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I mean, if I think about how you might use this with your clients, your CIOs, your CTOs who are thinking about their workforce, you guys going through this process actually helps them, engage other parts of the business like recruiting and HR and others that they're going to need help from in terms of getting 12, 24 months, 36 months down the line. So you guys are effectively informing not just an interim and future state design, but actually a transition roadmap to help those teams through that process. And all this data is effectively the backbone for those plans.
That's right. And also helping to make sure that the budget is truly there so that we're not surprised in having to find a way to squeeze in additional resources to to be able to drive what we're really trying to get out of the cloud. Now we've got it planned in. We can actually figure out, okay, my FY25, FY26 is going to account for this additional headcount. I've planned, I'm purposeful, and now I'm ready to go.
Right. I also think it creates kind of an aha moment for many CTOs, CIOs. I know there's a little bit of, we tend to be focused a lot, and I myself am guilty of that sometimes, on the technology and what are the new capabilities that we're enabling with that technology. And I can understand why workforce becomes almost a second thought to that. But I think this gives them an end-to-end picture of every single element that you have to consider when you're making this change. And it's not going to be an easy change, right? We've done a lot of the groundwork for you, and now you can see it. You can see it in one place. We know CIOs, CTOs tend to be data driven, so this is definitely a great way to visualize what is gonna. There's a big impact to this, and it's not as simple as just I'm gonna post a cloud engineer role, data architect, and hope for the best. No, it actually has to. You actually have to take a deeper dive, a look into it in your organization, and make sure that you're evolving with the technology. And it's no longer just I have this position available. It's how do I optimize in order to make my organization now the catalyst of other changes. And so I think with that, we've talked a lot about roles today, but there's definitely a deeper dive into skills. And skills are going to trend in a certain direction, roles are going to trend in a certain direction based on the skills that they have. So I mentioned this multiple times today, but the cloud, you operate differently in the cloud, whether it's you release software differently. Now it's all basically automated, ideally. You do security different. You're shifting a lot of your controls to the left. You're automating your pipelines. You are embedding security into what before was potentially a whole separate group doing it and thinking about it afterwards and doing its own separate testing. It's a lot more integrated when you go in the cloud. And so you will see how we've done a little bit of a market trend here with which roles are going to be decreasing over time, especially as you move more and more workloads to the cloud, which ones you can transfer and upskill. And again, I think, some of them you can kind of see here on the screen, like solutions architects. You already have a lot of the institutional knowledge with your existing blueprint. Now, how can you make that blueprint work in the cloud? How can you incorporate landing zones, microservices architectures, and other tool sets into your existing frameworks? And there's going to be net new roles that you need. Just like the COE, there's going to be a lot of roles that you do need to scale rapidly in order to be able to operate day one in the cloud as you want to, such as solutions architect, a data engineer that is specialized in the cloud, an SRE, a DevOps engineer, right? These are all new skills that you do need in order to get those benefits and to be able to operate in the new, more integrated, faster to market type of way. And I think with that, we do want to leave you with a nice picture of, we want to take you from your traditional, this is how we've done it for 100 of years, to now you're no longer just a business support function, you are the function. You are the catalyst for all innovation, all transformation. And you really do this thanks to your tech workforce. There's no way to get optimized for the cloud unless you have your workforce ready and along the journey with you. So I think this is the end of our visualizations. Any thoughts, Mike? Okay. One more. I almost made it through. I almost remember all of them. So again, this is another just quantifying the impacts. It goes back to, you do want to monitor this over time. You want to make sure you're on track with your investments. You want to make sure that what you predicted is actually coming to fruition, and seeing what kind of impacts am I having by function. You'll see that we are really we're really anchored on that capability, that function. It's because they all have its own nuance that goes in with them, and you can kind of see it here. And the other thing I do want to call out here is there are roles and skills that are best suited for employees. There are roles and skills that are best suited for contractors, and this is a really nice visualization on how each function has that split. And this is again something that I do see a lot of clients are trying to figure out. This gives you the blueprint to start, and then we can work with your organization to make sure that you get to the best position that you can be in these two areas.
Wow. I mean, that was very comprehensive in terms of the approach that you guys think about with your clients in terms of all the workforce related impacts. I feel like we only scratched the surface on some of these things, right? We've talked about other ways that you could model out a future state workforce, such as with agile teams as an example. I know that Deloitte specifically has some other accelerators and some proprietary data and other tools that you guys might just want to touch on as we close out here. And Nate, maybe I'll turn it to you to just offer a couple of words on some of these awesome capabilities you guys have.
I know labor market intelligence. I think you're going to have some of our partners in talking a little bit more about that later today. It's just an awesome opportunity to start predicting demand. Look at demand, look at what's out there, and look at what others are doing. What Araceli is showing, she said, this is an average organization. That organization's going to pivot. We're going to see shifts. We're going to see new trends, right? So our goal is that we're keeping an updated point of view on that. We use labor market intelligence to look at what are those roles that are shifting, what are the new skills that are coming in, and how do we adapt what that future state should look like. We can also go the whole other level, right, which Araceli didn't go into. We peel back the onion, we get to one more layer. We can start to look at geographies. Where are these skills located? What's the right place to start to pivot? Where does a company have their current hubs, and can we use those, or do we need to look outside of that? So there's a lot, I think, that I just, every time we get an opportunity to really kind of share labor market intelligence, it's a wonderful solution, wonderful asset that helps us to really predict where you can go and how to get the best value out of where that talent is in the market. The other piece I'll highlight just really quick, Mike, is we've built out a workforce analyzer tool. And so think about this as applied AI to the workforce. So everyone's asking, what are the big shifts that we need to make? How can I predict where roles are going to become more efficient? How many of those roles exist? Workforce Analyzer is a tool that we can actually point at the organization and look at what are the roles that are most significantly impacted, in what ways, within what tasks, by applied AI. And so it's a massive opportunity as well to say, again, these roles will pivot that Araceli is talking about, and how can we predict where those shifts are going to be so that we can model that into some of the efficiency gains that we're going to expect, and also make sure that we're putting in the right applied AI solutions that are going to help us to evolve. So two tools that I think, solutions that we bring to market in addition, that I think are just going to continue to amplify what we can do with Orgvue, and also kind of manage some of that volatility I was talking about in the market.
And I love the approach that you guys are taking, right? Which is, not everybody is going to have the same need for all of this data, but the way that you're thinking about it is you can connect all of these assets together to offer solutions for your clients at the point of need based on their unique challenges, based on where they're located, based on the type of talent they've got challenges with and opportunities with. So I think this is great. With that, I'll just close this out by saying thank you, Nate and Araceli, for your time. Great presentation. Really excited to see us take this to market together and help CIOs and CTOs solve the tech talent. That's great.
Thanks for hosting us.